Dear brothers and sisters, what you are about to hear is not just a story, it is a reminder of the power of faith, the strength of prayer, and the unseen mercy of Allah that moves when all hope seems lost. It began in a city that had forgotten the sound of adhan, where the mosques were empty, and the hearts of men were filled not with remembrance, but with noise of markets, noise of pride, noise of a world that thought it no longer needed its creator. Amid that world lived a man named Rafiq. He was neither rich nor learned, neither known by title nor praised by men. He was a simple craftsman, a maker of clay pots who spent his days with his hands covered in dust, and his nights covered in prayer. While others sought comfort in coins, Rafiq sought peace in sujud, and though his clothes were worn, his heart was adorned with faith that could not be bought. That morning was like any other. The sun rose heavy and golden above the rooftops. Merchants shouted in the bazaar, women carried baskets of fruit, and children chased each other through narrow streets. But in the midst of that chaos, a call stirred within Rafiq's soul, the call for Dursala. He looked around. There was no masjid nearby. The sound of adhan was drowned by the laughter of men who mocked belief. But his heart could no longer wait. So right there, in the middle of the street where donkeys passed and carts rattled, Rafiq placed down his old, torn prayer mat. And as the world rushed by him, he lifted his hands and whispered, Allahu Akbar. The crowd paused. Some stared in confusion. Some smirked, shaking their heads. And a few, their hearts dark with arrogance, murmured insults under their breath. But Rafiq heard nothing except the rhythm of his own breath, the whisper of the Quran flowing through his chest. When his forehead touched the ground, the noise of the market faded, and all that existed was peace. Peace so vast, it felt as though the earth itself had paused to listen. But among the crowd stood a man who could not bear that sight. His name was Malik ibn Darim, a proud governor, drunk with power, known for mocking the believers and silencing those who dared to speak Allah's name in public. He watched Rafiq in disbelief, his pride burning hotter than the sun. Who is this fool? He spat. Does he not know the law? No public prayer without permission. No display of faith in the streets. His guards rushed forward at once. The sound of armor clattered through the marketplace. Rafiq was pulled harshly from his sujud, his mat trampled under the boots of soldiers. But even then, his lips moved softly, whispering, La ilaha illallah, Mohammedur Rasulullah. The governor's voice thundered, Take him, let him be made an example. If he dares bow in the street, then let the street be his prison. And so they dragged him away, a simple man in chains, his wrists bruised, his body weak, but his heart steady as the morning light. That night the city buzzed with whispers. Have you heard? They arrested the potter who prayed. They say he will be executed at sunrise. Some wept, some trembled in silence, but none dared to speak out loud. Fear had become the law, and faith had become a crime. In the cold darkness of his cell, Rafiq sat alone. His hands were bound, his back pressed against the stone wall, and yet, his heart was free. He recited quietly, Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin. Indeed, my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are for Allah, Lord of the worlds. Tears rolled down his face, but they were not tears of fear. They were tears of surrender. Ya Allah, he whispered, if this is my last night, then let it be my best sujud. Do not let my tongue stop remembering you. Let me meet you smiling. Outside, the guards laughed. They heard his voice through the iron bars. Pray as much as you want, they mocked. Tomorrow your prayers will end. Rafiq smiled softly. He raised his eyes toward the tiny window above and said, Allah is enough for me, and He is the best of protectors. The night stretched long. The wind howled through the corridors of the prison. And somewhere in that silence, a divine decree was being written, one that no tyrant could erase. When dawn broke, the city awoke to a grim spectacle. A wooden scaffold stood tall in the square. A thick rope dangled from the gallows, swaying in the breeze. People gathered in silence. Merchants, children, elders, all waiting to witness what the governor had promised. A punishment that would strike fear into every believer's heart. Rafiq was brought out in chains. He wore a simple robe, its edges torn and dusty. His face glowed faintly with peace. Every step he took, his lips moved in dhikr. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. The guards sneered. One leaned close and whispered, "This will be your last sunrise, old man. Why do you smile?" Rafiq looked at him gently and replied, "Because I walk not toward death, but toward my Lord." The words struck like a stone in the guard's chest. For the first time, his hands trembled as he fastened the rope. The governor stood upon a raised platform, his voice booming across the square. This man dared to defy the law. He prayed in the streets when told not to. Today he will hang, and let his death be a warning to all who bow to anyone but my command. The crowd murmured, some shaking their heads, some silently praying. Then Rafiq spoke. His voice was calm, but it carried through the air like the call to prayer. "O people," he said, "I did not bow in the street to insult anyone. I bowed because my heart could no longer stand without Allah. They may bind my hands, but they cannot bind my faith. And know this, there is no power, no law, no ruler above the power of Allah." A hush swept through the square. Even the governor fell silent for a moment. Then he waved his hand. The lever was pulled. The platform dropped. The crowd gasped. But before the rope could tighten around Rafiq's neck, it snapped, tore cleanly in two, as if sliced by an invisible blade. Rafiq fell to the ground, alive, unharmed, and still whispering dhikr. The crowd erupted. "Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!" The guards froze. The governor's face turned white. "Replace it," he shouted. "Use another rope, a stronger one." A new rope was brought, thick and new. Rafiq was lifted again. But his eyes, they were glowing with peace. He already knew the truth. The platform fell again. And again, the rope snapped. The people cried louder. Children screamed. Women fell into sujud right there in the square. And even the soldiers, the same ones who had tied him, began to tremble. The governor's lips quivered. His pride cracked like the ropes. "Impossible," he whispered. "This cannot be." But it was. And it was only the beginning. The night had swallowed the last echo of his breath. The air was thick, still, and heavy with waiting, as if the unseen world itself was holding its breath, watching what would unfold next. Arif sat where the light refused to reach. Chains circled his wrists like silent serpents. But inside him, something ancient had awakened. A calmness, too deep to belong to this world. Outside, the guards spoke in whispers. Some said the prisoner had gone mad. Others said they had seen a glow in his cell, a light that flickered even when their torches died. But Arif was not mad. He was listening to the silence that once broke prophets, listening to the same silence that turns fear into revelation. Hours passed like lifetimes. Then a sound, not of footsteps, not of chains, but of rain. It began as a murmur against the stone roof, soft as a mother's prayer, the first rain in months. And as it fell, Arif felt it. That pulse again, that living energy that had followed him since childhood. He closed his eyes, and the darkness began to speak. "You have been tested," it whispered, "not to destroy you, but to remind you who you are." Tears slipped down his face, not of pain, but remembrance. He remembered the well he was thrown into as a boy. He remembered the faces that mocked him, the brothers that betrayed him, the world that turned away. And yet, every fall had only led him deeper into the truth. The door creaked open. A soldier entered, trembling. His torch flickered and died. For a moment, both men stood in darkness. Only the sound of rain remained, falling steady, falling pure. The soldier whispered, They said you cursed the king. Arif looked up, his voice quiet but unwavering. I did not curse him, he said. I only refused to kneel before a man who forgot the face of the one who made him. The soldier lowered his eyes. Something in Arif's voice pierced through his armor of fear. He dropped the keys on the ground, not as rebellion but as repentance, and walked away. Arif stared at the keys lying before him. He could leave. He could run. But he knew freedom was not in escape. It was in surrender. He took a deep breath and prayed. Not for rescue, not for vengeance, but for the hearts of those lost in their own darkness. Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon, like the drumbeat of divine truth. That night, the king dreamt of a river of fire swallowing his palace. He woke drenched in sweat, the echo of a single name burning in his ears. Arif. By dawn, he summoned his advisors, but none could explain the dream, until an old scholar stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said softly, the dream is not punishment, it is warning. The man you imprison carries a message meant for your salvation, not your fall. The king hesitated. For the first time in years, fear crawled into his heart. Not fear of man, but of something far greater. He ordered Arif to be brought before him. The guards found the cell empty. The chains were broken, but the door still locked. And on the wall, a single verse was etched, glowing faintly in the dawn light. And when they plot against you, Allah plots with you, and Allah is the best of planners. The palace shook with murmurs. Some said the man had vanished into the sand. Others said he had walked into the dawn, following a voice only he could hear. Days turned to weeks. The rains did not stop. The kingdom that once mocked the heavens now trembled before it. One evening, a traveler arrived at the city gate, his clothes torn, his face covered in dust. But his eyes burned with that same light. He walked into the square, where people gathered in fear and confusion, and when he spoke, the crowd fell silent. He did not speak of revenge. He did not curse those who betrayed him. He spoke only of mercy, of truth, of the one who brings dawn after every endless night. People wept openly. Some fell to their knees. Even the king, standing from his balcony, felt his heart tremble like a leaf in the wind. Arif looked up at the darkening sky. A faint smile crossed his lips. He knew it was not over, but he also knew he had fulfilled what was written. Because revelation does not always descend in thunder. Sometimes it comes quietly, through a broken man whispering truth in a trembling world. The call to prayer echoed through the valley that night, and as its sound rose to the heavens, a single tear rolled down Arif's cheek. The desert wind carried it away, toward the horizon, toward the next seeker who would one day be called. And so, the story did not end. It began again, as all divine stories do, not with victory, but with remembrance. To every soul walking through its own prison of silence. Know this, even in your darkest cell, the light still watches.